Hello and welcome to episode 174. Yes, it's been a while. The journey to go get milk was quite the journey. It's been a while since we last talked, but we're here. We're all here today. You clicked on the episode and I'm here talking to you. Whether that be on the video, on the audio, wherever you listen, I'm always really interested to see where people listen and what they've been up to. Actually, people have been calling into the hotline, leaving messages. I had a couple people call in, say don't use their voice, so I'm going to read some of the emails or texts that they gave in. You guys can always reach out to that yourself, 425-320-3641, or if you know me, just give me a call. It's been a long time since the last episode came out, and I think there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on in the world, not even really just personal stuff, but more so just everything that's going on. I think the climate and I'm not going to be that guy that's going to sit here and get political because I'm not that smart about that stuff. But we're here, and I'm glad to be here. The milk, I'm lactose intolerant, but I went and got milk, and I'm back. I just don't want to be known as like the guy who makes the same like native joke all the time. Like the lip pointing thing. I feel like that's been overused. I feel like sometimes in native country we keep recycling these jokes and some of them are funny. Hey Victor, or hey, that's like Geronimo, or I feel like they're like common and people are going to get a good laugh. But I feel like there's sometimes it's like the low-hanging fruit of native jokes. I feel like that's something I don't like to be. And I feel like for a while, I mean, not recently, but more like when I was looking back at the pod, and, that's what the fun part about this is we can grow up together because we're all getting older at the same amount of time. I've seen how this pod has come from what it was to what it is now, and I think I'm just trying to get away from that, the low-hanging fruit. I don't think anybody likes the low-hanging fruit guy. I think I've talked about this before. And for people who don't know what low-hanging fruit is like the easiest joke or the easiest thing to say. It's easy to say, oh, I don't know, why the chicken crossed the road joke, or impersonate somebody. And I do a lot of impersonations, and I don't think I'm going to stop doing them, or I'm going to stop doing low-hanging fruit stuff because it just happens. But I'm getting sick of the accent, the native accent that everyone says in every joke. Like, I never thought that was that funny. I never thought that the over there joke was that funny with the lips. And a lot of people will probably come out and say, "Oh, Dom, it's because you didn't grow up in, you're not that native enough to understand." It's like, bro, I'm native enough to understand that joke is overplayed. It's time for a new one. We could brand ourselves a little bit better. I think there's a lot of people who point with their lips when they don't want to use their fingers. I don't think that's like a thing that we all do. I think it's something that we all occasionally do, but I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with that. I guess it's kind of like the same feeling you get when you realize you're in the dumb class. And that happened to me with quite a bit, and I would look to my left, look to my right, and be like, damn, this is, we're in this together, but this is, we don't even get homework in this class. We're not that smart. It's okay, And that's what I mean about the class. I'm not saying natives in general before everyone gets their pants on a fire and wants to cancel me. And if they do, that would probably give me a little bit more time off. But that's the truth. I remember I'd walk into class. This is what's funny, man. I think I've made this joke before. This is what's funny, dude. So I walked into class and we were doing algebra in 7th grade. Some kids will probably do calculus nowadays in 7th grade, but back in my day, that's what we were doing in 7th grade. And all of a sudden I walk in and there's this teacher. His name was Mr. Hall, and he was a real cool guy. And I kind of feel bad because I didn't really pay too much attention math wise. And that's probably why I wasn't really much of a math guy, because this was a pivotal point. When letters start coming into math, it's getting there. And all I was caring about was memorizing each team in every football division with my buddy Forrest. Anyway, I remember walking into that class, and when you walk into a class and you're like, okay, this is the kids are used to seeing. I was like, oh yeah, these are people I've been kind of going to school with for a long time now. Like, this is cool. And then Mr. Hall said, I also teach another class, but they just have a little bit different of a teaching than you guys. So at that point, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, we're in the smart class. That whole first week, I was just in my head. I was thinking, oh, we're the smart kids. And we had these rip-away homework sheets, that were kind of simple homework. And I noticed the other class had to carry books. And I was like, damn, you guys have to carry your textbook with you? We got the tearaway sheets, dude. So anyway, as the week goes by, I start to notice that other kids at lunch were doing math homework. And for a long time, for that week, I consider that a long time. Because, most kids probably realize within a day. I was kind of like, man, we never, I do my math homework at home, man. This is nothing. Like y equals 2, and I got to just like put a line under it and divide it by 2, and that's what y is. Or, at the time, that's how simple it was. Probably mentioned it wrong. Anyway, I started looking to my right, because I was fortunately actually in a smart history class. My math scores were low, so I was in the lower tier of that. So I saw one of my buddies who's in the other Mr. Hall class, and I said, he was sitting there struggling. He had like 3 pages of homework. At a 7th grader, that's a long time, And he was sitting there doing these problems, and he's like, "Is Mr. Hall giving you guys this stuff?" And I was just like, "No, I think we're past that." Yeah, and then I looked at his paper, and it was foreign language to me. I looked at his homework and I damn near almost got mad, because how some parents, you show them your homework and they just get mad because they don't get it? That was me. So anyway, I go into the class that next Monday, and I look to my left and I see my guy Forrest at the time, and he, I'd like to think we were probably around the same skill in math. Obviously we were in the same class. And I look over to my right and scan the room. I kind of turn my head back like this. I see some kids that are tech decking. I see kids that are putting glue in between their hands and just ripping it apart, I see kids throwing up. Yeah. What else did I see? Unfortunately, I saw the loud Latina in the back with the hot Cheetos. And I say unfortunately because I never got any. She never shared. And then there's the res girls in the back with the liter of Pepsi at 8 a.m. at this time. So I'm kind of looking like, okay, we're not the brightest bunch. And then you got me too. I was some kid who barely knew what to do, and if I could name you the AFC North standings and the NFC West standings at the time without hesitating. And I could tell you what somebody was rated on Madden 12 at the time. That was me. I was smart in that section. Or if you asked me who won the NBA Live dunk contest or NBA dunk contest, I could tell you. But I couldn't tell you anything past y equals 2x. So class dismissed, and Mr. Hall said, "Hey, there's no homework tonight." And I looked to my buddy Forrest, and I said, "Well, everybody else gets hella homework. Why don't we get homework in this class?" And he was kind of puzzled too, like, I don't know. Anyway, we walked out. I walked it because there was occasionally kids who would line up to go into the next class. And I looked to my left, looked to my right, and the kids who were entering this class were a different group of folk at that point, you know? And there was about 28 of them, and our class was about maybe 15, 18. And I looked at them, and they're carrying it. It was called the whole algebra book, and mine was called IA. So for a long time, Mr. Hall would just address us as the IA class. IA class. I was just like, oh, that's just like our name. Like he could have picked like the Dom class or, you know, the Lion class. I just thought it was a name, like IA, like ESPN. And I asked Mr. Hall that next day after I went into class, because after I saw those smart people lining up, I said, Mr. Hall, what does IA mean? He says, intensified algebra. And it's intensified. I thought that meant smarter for a long time, for like a week and a half. Anyway, long story short, even though I already told you the long story, I was in the slower class. And that was a realization that I had to kind of pick up my feet a little bit and be like, well, hey, easier homework for me. And I think I had that attitude for the whole year. I had this attitude of, oh, we got easy stuff. Next year, I'll just get back in the normal class, and then I'll be able to lock in then. Anyway, 8th grade comes around. I did not lock in then. And I was a good student. I didn't get in much trouble, but I definitely kind of cheated my way through. Like, cheated in the way of like whatever I could do to get a good grade, I did. And I got pretty good at it, and then it kind of went into high school. And then, college is kind of harder to do that because I think I was a little bit more worried. Because, like the scholarships and the grants and stuff, like I felt bad, like if I would like do that on those. So I didn't think to do that then. But anyway, all I'm saying is there was that moment where you're like, what are we doing? What am I doing here? And I feel like that's the place I go to when we keep making these same repetitive, lame, low-hanging fruit jokes. I look to my left, I see people making the over there joke with the lips. I look to my right, people are saying, hey, Victor. And I'm like, okay, where can I fit in? And this has been a crisis I think, some natives like myself face, where you're in the middle. I could dive in deep and do the full-on res jokes where it kind of goes to a community that is where I'm going to be doing. Or then I go into other niche, which is like me being mixed and doing just kind of whatever. Or I kind of stay in the middle. And I think for a long time, this pod has been kind of like that, where I'm like, okay, testing the waters. And I feel like I lean towards left and right. I never went into the middle. So I feel like now I guess I'm just kind of thinking out loud and being here with you guys. I think that's special too. But yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. It's something I've really been thinking about. And I'm not fishing for compliments here. I'm not fishing to be, like, oh, Dom, you're doing something so original. I'm not asking for that. There's a lot of things that, I could sit up here and fish for. A lot of guys like to go out there and fish for compliments just as much as the women do. Women will, get their hair done. They'll put something nice on and they'll say, how do I look? They straight up say it. How a guy will do it is he'll go mow the lawn all day, and then he'll come in and be like, wow, that lawn just looks so good. I weeded it around the rocks, and, I made sure I got right up next to the street, so it's like perfectly aligned. Did you see the lawn? What do you mean you didn't see? You didn't see it when you drove in? You didn't notice? It makes a big difference. And I feel like that happens a lot in lawn mowing. There's a lot of unsung heroes that go unnoticed. So I kind of prepared some things I want to, share. We have 3 voicemails that are just texts that I'm going to use. So I'll just read them to you guys and what they say. But before I get to that, I was actually talking to some of my buddies about some food stories in my local town. The first one comes from a popular chain, actually. I'm just going to leave, as a sandwich shop, I'm going to leave the actual name of the business out because I don't want to get in trouble. It was a sandwich shop near our res, but it was actually off the res, so we're not claiming it. I had a buddy who was a big fan of the sandwich place, and he would go there all the time, and he'd always rave about it, like, yo, this place is so much better than Subway, guys. This is the best place, and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of us started getting sick of it, because a lot of us were eating, school lunch, and we're kind of like, this guy gets this, restaurant every day. So I feel like part of this was like maybe some of my other buddies getting upset. Anyway, there comes out this big story about this particular store, which happened to be kind of a chain. That's as big as a hint as you're going to get. And basically came out and said that 2 couples were caught having intercourse, sex, on boxes in the back of this certain store. Not to say that this was the one that was in our neighborhood, but anyway, he would always get this sandwich. It would be like the simple number 2 or something like that, and it like had ham, turkey, or whatever it was, but he'd always get extra mayonnaise. And I've never been a mayo guy, and this could be one of the main reasons I'm not. Anyway, my buddy stopped eating there, but he stopped eating there because my other buddy one day at lunch was like, hey man, can I, what kind of sandwich did you get? He's like, oh, I got, ham, turkey, mayonnaise, mustard, or whatever. He's like, so you got the extra mayonnaise? And he was kind of puzzled. Like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, didn't they, like, wasn't there this couple that got caught, doing it in the back? And maybe that you got some extra mayonnaise in your mayo. And I don't think that guy ever had it since then. And I thought that was the grossest thing for the longest time, dude. And I think I've told you guys this other story too, and this one is a crazy one. If I have, I apologize, but I was going to a fried fish place in Marysville. And me and my buddies walk in, and, there's like 4 of us. And we were like teenagers, so we probably look like, here come these kids. But the thing is that, we were pretty civil. Like, we didn't go in there and cause a ruckus in this fish place. Anyway, we walk in there and get this order of fish and chips, and I got the clam and strips. A lot of people are going to probably make fun of me for that, but the clam and strips are actually pretty good at this place. Anyway, we go in and my buddy orders the fish and chips. And all of a sudden, they walk our food out. I get mine and I'm eating mine. He eats his fries first, and actually like a minute goes by, he takes a bite. There is a hair from probably the top of my head and down to my lower back. How long this hair was. Forearm length. Maybe a little bit longer than a forearm. On this piece of fish, that was, maybe it was like, like a fish and chip size, about the size of your fist, like a hang loose. And my buddy was actually pretty mature about it. He's like, hey, I understand this happens. Can I get something else or just another one? And the lady goes, I don't see how that could be ours. And at the time I had short hair, he had short hair. And my other buddy had semi-longer hair, like the size mine is now, like the length mine is now. So they're like, so you guys planted that. And us 3 were like, or whoever else was there, I don't remember the 4th person, but none of us had long hair as long as that. And the lady went on to go say, you guys brought that hair in here. There's no way that could be us. And my buddy goes, well, ma'am, or whatever he said. He's like, that's not true. I just, if I could just get another one, I don't even need my money back. They say they were kind of groaned about it, and I think they ended up doing it. But anyway, the chef comes out. The chef, I am not joking even one bit. The lady, the fry cook lady who came out was at least 6'7". Came out, and her hair was down to her back. Long, curly, silver hair. Came out, gave us the new food, and said, I don't know how that hair could have been ours. There's no way, because we, as in the restaurant, bred our fish a day before. My buddy looks to his left, looks to his right, and he says, so I had a day-old hair in my food? And we just lost it. And at this point, we're probably being rude at this point. But you're going to serve somebody hair and just be like, hey, I'm sorry. Just if there's a chance that it could be, you're in a restaurant, I would feel like the right thing to do would say, look, we're our bad. But in this case, they doubled down and tried to call us like a liar again, even though it just made the sense of it even worse. So yeah, that was a pretty crazy story. Next week, I'll give you guys another crazy story, or next time I'm on here, about a time I brought my buddy to a restaurant, and you know what? I'm just going to skip all that. We're just going to tell you the story. So it was actually right at the end of COVID. And basically, my buddy, he called me. He said, hey, man, can we go get something to eat today? I'm not really having the best of days. And that was pretty rare. So I was like, oh, dude, I know the spot we got to go. Me and my grandpa went here a couple years ago, and it was super good, and I think you'll like it. I really do. And he's like, all right, man, this is going to be great. I needed this. So I was like, how's it going? He's like, going through it. And I was like, all right, well, let's go. And we walk up, and he's a little bit ahead of me. And he was like, what is that? And I was like, what is it? There was a pile of bum on the front door, at least the size of a bear's poop, that big. Like, it looked like 4 diapers right in front of the door. And it said shut down, because COVID at the time, it still had it shut down. And I thought it was just right after it, so I thought we were like off the hook and we can go eat there. Turns out no. So those are 3 bad stories right there, and I have a lot more. We'll get to those here more. Marysville horror stories of the food horror stories. But before we go, I want to actually answer some of these emails. And remember, you guys can always text into the hotline 425-320-3641. And you could ask me for some advice. You can just let me know what's going on. Or you could just call into the pod and just say what's up. But these ones are actually, I've been gone for a while, and I get these occasionally. So I wanted to answer them and get a hold of these people, or get a hold of their emails and see what I think. Here's number 1. Yo, DJP, how do I stop shutting down? That's the question. I'm going to leave his name out. He's like, hey, Don, been listening for the pod a while. Mad respect for how you balance all the things going on. Noticed you haven't been on the pod recently, but I have a question for you about some male advice or something, whatever you want to call it. He says, real talk. Every time I get into an argument with my girl, I shut down. Not even on purpose, it just happens. Like my brain just hits a nah switch. Why do we as guys do that? And more importantly, how the hell do I stop doing it before she packs up and pieces out? Anyways, man, I appreciate anything or the bros have to say on this. And he wrote, silent but trying. Oof. Man. This is a good question. And I'll be honest, I don't know. That's my first answer, because I mean this in the nicest and least sexist way I can say it. I don't understand women, and nor do I think I ever will. So, but what I do is there was this segment that Bill Burr had. And it was a really good, funny segment. And I wish if I could find it, I'll link to it or something and send it to you. But it was basically like as if when you're in an argument, you got to remember that sometimes, not women, just people will try to press your buttons. And me, like I told you, in 7th grade, all I was focused on was everything about football. I knew I wasn't going to be like the most athletically gifted person, so I just thought, I'm just going to dive in and learn it and know everything about it. So, in football terms, because I know a lot of guys are in football, like football, you got to think of this as her attempt to just score, to win the argument. It's 4th down and 20. You're already up 3, and they're at their own 20, lobbing it up a Hail Mary just to win. All you got to do is play a little bit of defense. In defense, and I mean, sometimes you might not have to say anything. And sometimes you're right. Boom. End of story. And that's usually what I do. And you know what? I'll be honest. I don't usually win all those arguments. And I'm not even just saying in my own relationship. I'm just saying in general. In any friendship or relationship, or women, or even other guys, that just happens. So what I'm saying is don't shut down. Because in this situation, that's the last thing you want to do. If you shut down, they're going to score. They're going to leave. They're going to pack up, and they're going to leave. You got to have a line somewhere. And believe me, I struggle with that myself. Relationships are hard. So remember that, remember it's, and if she wants to pack up and leave, I think you alluded that it's a girl. Yeah, it says, yeah. If she wants to leave, man, at the other point is let her. If she's going to get mad at you for attacking you and then you shut down because you're trying to hold yourself accountable and be mature, that's her problem. But can't blame it all on her because you could be at fault too. So don't think that, I'm just saying that you're completely innocent, because we all think we're all innocent. Every argument I've ever been in, I think I'm innocent. OJ thought he was innocent, and then he proved it, but, some people don't think so. Okay, here we go. Second one. Thank you for the call in. I wish you the best. Keep us updated what happens there. Hope that helped you a little bit. Subject, email number 2. I'm an overthinker. Ooh. Dang. Overthinking, dude. We'll just call you Overthinker because I don't want to say your name here, because I seen you left your first and last name. I'm just going to be respectful here. Yo, DJP. All right, I got a situation for you. Been missing the pod. Thanks again for the nice words. Met this girl. Vibes were there. We went out once, had a great time. I texted her the next day, cool. Then I hit her up the day again after, nothing. Waited a bit and then sent one more. Now I feel like I messed up. Am I overthinking, or did I officially enter thirsty territory? How do you balance showing interest without looking desperate? Need the male perspective. My boys are useless. Text, Tony. Oh, I guess I did just say your name. So, oh man, the double text. I think all guys have been in that territory of double texting. I mean, double texting means really one thing, and you're showing it is that you care about this conversation. You care about getting your point off. You care about this person. That's what it says. And it's kind of like it goes to the, we want what we can't have thing. This is a good question, because I think when I first am interested in somebody, I dial in and I'll double text sometimes. I'll be honest, I double text sometimes. And sometimes they do, if they're really into you. And I feel like in this point, I feel like her not saying anything is a message. That is something. Unless she checked in her phone to the roller coaster, checked her phone into the lockers and rode a roller coaster at Wild Waves for 8 hours a day every day. I doubt she's probably thinking about getting back to you. And she knows, like a lot of people, like, They say they're busy, but we're always on our phones. So if she's not answering, it's time to go finish the laundry. It's time to go for a walk, go do something. And you never know. You might come back and her message is there, but you also have to be okay with if it's not there. So, yeah, man, don't think of yourself as desperate. I think if you triple text, that's pretty desperate. Treat this double text as, all right, she's obviously doing something else. She's probably texting someone else. I'll be straight up with you. That's the last thing you wanted to hear from this call-in. But she's probably texting somebody else. And you know what? It could be someone that she has history with before you even were around. So let's just remember that. We're not the only people in people's universes. I know I do that too, man. That's a problem I have. I'll put people on a pedestal, especially people I'm romantically interested in. Then I'll just I'll try to just, find a way to make a conversation. That's not the way to do it. So, man, I'm gonna tell you, you gotta just realize that she's probably texting someone else. And as soon as you get over that little bit of a hurdle, it's easy, because it seems like you just met her. This would be one thing if you were in a relationship for, you guys were married in 10 years. Then I'd say probably something a little bit different. But in this case, you guys aren't that far invested. So let's just, let's do that. And then let's just move on for a bit, for an hour or two. Go do something else. Go take a shower, man. I always feel better after taking a shower. It's kind of like that scene in Moneyball. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You got to be straight with yourself. You want to sit here and wait to hear if they're going to be interested. You're going to double text them, and you're going to want to hear what do you want to hear? Oh, sorry, I was talking to this guy, and he was really nice, and he was cool. He makes a lot of money, and I knew him before you. He's taller than you. Like, what do you want to hear that? No. You think of it like Brad Pitt saying, look, she's talking to someone else. Here's another opportunity to go do something else. Like you said. That's how I would think of it. Look, she's not interested. Here's the card to get back on the train. Get back on yourself. And that's something I think I needed to do. I'll be honest with you guys. These past 2 months have been kind of rough. And that's why I haven't been out here talking to you guys. Because I think there's a time to come out here and talk to people about what's going on. And I think that's true, man. I mean, I'm not gonna forefront it, but I was doing some things that weren't me. That's the truth. And for a while, I was sitting in it. I felt like I was sitting in a diaper of just random crisis mode for no reason. It's like, what am I doing, So what I do, went and cut my hair, got back in the gym, started eating good again, trying to not drink anything else but water. It's been 4 days strong. Proud of it. And then what do you know? I'm back on here talking to you. So, yeah, just think of Moneyball, man. You got to move on. You got to tell her. Tell yourself, hey, I'm moving on from this. She's giving you that talk right now by her not saying that. That's basically what that means. Last email, and then we'll call it a day, guys. Let's see. Email number 3, identity crisis. Identity crisis. We just kind of talked about this. Yo, what's good, Dom? I got a real one for you. Lately, I've been working a lot on myself, eating better, journaling. Don't judge me. I've been going to therapy. But now some of my boys are clowning on me for changing up and not being the same dude I used to be. One even said I was getting soft, and I'm low-key questioning it. Is self-growth unmanly now? Or do I just need new friends? Would love to hear what you have to say. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm trying to level up and not lose myself. Wow, first of all, congratulations. Not a lot of people decide to fix themselves. A lot of people kind of like continue bad habits, and it seems like you're trying to change yourself a little bit, and that's good. Eating better and journaling. Hey man, like sometimes you got to say something. Sometimes you want to tell someone off, just write it down real quick, text it and delete the note, whatever. A lot of people, I don't have a pen and paper. Write it in your notes. Anyway, I think the real point in this is that your boys are clowning on you about this. And I think that's the biggest red flag of everything you said, because I think all the other things that you said are good. Part of therapy is realizing what's going on around you. And it seems to me your first step is seeing that your friends are kind of questioning you about this. And you got to remember, hey, you're here for you and not your friends. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. And, you know, like life's going to throw you some friends that are kind of they're going to do that to you. And it'd be one thing if you're condemning your friends. Like you're saying, fuck you guys, you know, I don't like what you do. That's different. You're not. I hope to see that in this situation you're not being like that. But if you're just going about your life and, you know, like, hey, I got to hit the gym and they're clowning, that's on them. Because I'll be honest, one of my buddies reached out to me and it was the opposite. He's like, hey, man, how's it going? What's been going on? And I think that's friendship, and I appreciate that way more than just some random, just someone I can just call a friend just because. So it's not unmanly to self-grow, and I don't want to say yes to new friends because I don't know what you and your friends have gone through. Because your friends could be going through, hey, they might need therapy too. They might need to eat better too. But I will say this. There's a lot of people who we think that are friends, and then they kind of see that you start doing good. And then they start acting a little bit different. So if this continues and they're kind of keep bringing you down and they're not like genuinely pumped for you, and I'm not saying that you're going to get flowers from your buddies every time. You know, I could think of a handful of times that, you know, my buddies have been, you know, hey man, really good job. Good. You know, like what do you expect? So I will say that in this side, you're not going to get roses from your bros. I'm sorry, man. They'll say, good job, dude. You know, I graduated, you know, the other year, and my buddy said, hey, man, good job. I'm not expecting anything more than that. You can't expect them to do that for you either. So I don't know if I hope I'm making you feel better about this, but yeah, I hope you're not taking this personal. But this is how somebody would tell me. You know, don't be expecting them to throw you a parade now because you're going to therapy, because you're doing that for you and you're not doing that for them. So, yeah, man, if they're not being good friends, maybe it is time. And I congratulate you for working on yourself and eating better, because that's going to give you a fighting chance against this world of the depression that people face. And thank you for calling in. And but it's not unmanly to self-grow, man. It's not. And new friends are going to come, and you're going to be like, whoa, these people are cool. And you never know. They might be a little bit nicer to you. But, you know, maybe check on them. That's really kind of probably the opposite of what you think I was going to say, too. But maybe they're not eating right. And they don't want to, because they don't want to admit that you're right. So just hang in there a little bit. You know, things are going to be okay. And if you stay on this same track, I think you're going to be just fine. Anyway, guys, I think that's all I have for you. You know, this has been DJP episode, I think, 174 at this point. Remember, you guys can always call in and leave your own voicemails or texts. A lot of people have been texting in more because they think it's a little bit more comfortable. 425-320-3641 is the hotline. Go check that out. And I will see you guys next time. Again, thank you so much for your patience. And again, if you have my number or you actually know me as a person, don't got to call into the hotline. Just say what's up. Been a minute. I always like, you know, seeing what people are up to and texting them and saying what's up. So I'll see you guys next week. Wait.